The 3 habits of highly successful PhD students are regular reflection, strategic supervision, and the human being basics. I've been supporting PhD students in the social sciences for the last 20 years, and I've been watching what works and what doesn't work, and I've observed some really interesting stuff from the students that I've supported, and I've actually learned a lot from these behaviours myself. So these habits that I want to share with you today, regular reflection, strategic supervision, the human being basics, they are going to make the difference between you just finishing your PhD and doing okay to doing your PhD really, really well and putting in place some habits that are going to serve you incredibly well for the rest of your academic career, or even your career outside of academia, if you're not going to hang around in the academic world after your PhD. So that's what I'm going to be covering in this video. I'm going to be explaining to you what these habits are and how you can make them part of your life. There is one thing that I want to mention before we get into the habits, and that is boundaries. If you are not good with boundaries, you're not going to be able to establish or maintain habits. So boundaries are limits that we set for ourselves, limits that enable us to prioritize the things that matter to us. And setting boundaries is about being clear with ourselves about what we can achieve and what's realistic, but it's also about communicating those boundaries to other people in terms of how other people can support you in keeping that boundary and in maintaining the thing that you want to maintain. So before you can establish a habit, before you can make a habit work, before you can generate any momentum with it whatsoever, you need to be really good with boundaries. Now, luckily, I did a video about boundaries last week, so I will link to that up here. So if you're like starting to think now, yeah, I'm not great with boundaries, you probably want to check this video out before you watch this current one that you're watching right now, if that makes any sense. But anyway, all of that aside, sort your boundaries out before you get onto your habits. So let's get onto the habits now. The first habit that I've seen my successful PhD students engaging in is regular reflection. So every week or every couple of weeks, they will set aside a bit of time to just check in with themselves and reflect on how the last week or how the last couple of weeks have gone. And there are some questions that they regularly ask themselves, and here are these questions. What have I been working on this week or the past couple of weeks? How am I generally feeling about my PhD or life in general at college and university? Why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? What's worked well recently? And these things that have worked well, what should I keep doing? How can I keep them up? What hasn't worked so well lately? And therefore, what should I perhaps stop doing? What am I going to do over the next week? These seem like really simple questions, don't they? But they are incredibly effective. So if you just set aside like half an hour, once a week, once every couple of weeks, to ask yourself these questions and to think really hard about what's happened, about how you think and feel about how your PhD is progressing at this particular moment in time, it really does help you to identify the things that are working for you, so the things that you really need to double down on, and the things that really aren't serving you so well. And that might be things that relate to your actual work. It might be a particular way that you're going about doing your analysis or doing your critical reading or writing up a particular chapter, and you need to change that. But equally, it can also be about relationships that aren't serving you particularly well. So is there a fellow PhD student who is a bit toxic, who makes you feel not great about your progress, who is constantly showing off about all of the stuff that they've done and is making you feel like really inferior? And whether that's somebody who you are, face-to-face in contact with at university, or whether it's somebody that you follow on social media, you probably need to kind of block that out. You probably need to mute that person. You probably need to avoid that person around campus. So it's about really thinking quite holistically about all of the influences, all of the things that are going on in your life, because all of that stuff will affect your PhD. So when you're reflecting, don't keep it solely focused on your actual work, your actual thesis. Think about the people that you're surrounding yourself with as well. So this reflection process, I find that students who check in with themselves regularly, who reflect regularly, they are just so much more able to cope with the ups and downs of life doing a PhD. It doesn't remove any problems or challenges or barriers at all, but it does make you more resilient. It does set you up to be much more effective at actually coping with those things when they happen. Because there will be problems, there will be obstacles, there will be bumps in the road. There is no kind of magical, lovely, perfect PhD journey. It just doesn't exist. But when you're reflecting regularly, when you're constantly thinking about how you're coping with stuff and what's working and what isn't working for you, then it just puts you in such a better position in terms of your mindset. And you regularly get used to dealing with challenges, you regularly get used to being critical of yourself. And those are such important skills as a PhD student that you need to nurture. So reflect regularly, whatever that looks like for you. Whether you just think about these questions, whether you write them down, whether you sit down and you journal, whether you have a nice special little notebook for that, whatever works for you, just do it in whatever way feels natural to you. Don't make it feel like a chore, you know, and I think that is one of the things that stop people doing this kind of thing. So it won't be the first time, I'm sure, that somebody said this to you, that it's helpful to reflect regularly, it's helpful to write down your thoughts and your feelings. And you might have tried to do this in the past and you've just been like, oh God, it's that time of the week again. I'm just going to have to sit down and do this. If you're doing it in a way that doesn't sit right with you, then try something else, try something different. Just find something that works for you, because the actual act of reflecting is what we're going after here. I'm not bothered with how you do it. You can do it in whatever way works best for you. And if you're doing it in a way that doesn't feel natural to you, you're not going to be able to keep it up. So do it in a way that feels good. Okay, so reflect regularly. That's our first habit. Next up is being really strategic about your supervision. This is such an important habit. And my most successful, productive, amazing PhD students have been the ones who know how to get the best out of their supervision and who know how to get the best out of their supervisors. And your supervision meetings, the check-ins that you regularly have with your supervisor, they are a great place to start in terms of being strategic around your supervision. Because when you look at the really good students, the students who are really on it, and you observe what they do around these supervision meetings, oh my goodness, you learn so much. I found that some students, the less productive, the less successful students, when it comes to their supervision, they take a bit of a back seat with it. So they will turn up to their supervision meetings, but they won't come with a plan. They will just kind of have a bit of a casual chat with their supervisor, and they will wait for their supervisor to kind of take the lead. They will be the ones who are, you know, pausing in the conversation whilst they wait for somebody else to say something. And that is not what you want to be doing at all. What you want to be doing is learning from the students who are really on it when it comes to their supervision meetings. And one of the things that they do is that they go into these meetings with an agenda. So before they have a meeting with that supervisor, if they can see that they've got a meeting kind of coming up in a week or a couple of weeks' time, they'll make some notes about questions that they want to ask their supervisor. They'll write down some points about things that they want to cover with their supervisor, things that they want to ask their supervisor to do. They might have been out collecting data in the field, and there are certain things that they've noticed or they're concerned about, or they just want to spend some time chatting about. So they will write down a little agenda of questions, and it doesn't have to be like loads of questions, loads of points. It might only be 3, 4 or 5 things, but the main thing that I'm trying to get across here is that they go into that meeting with a plan. They have a strategy, they have an agenda. Here is what I want to cover in this meeting with my supervisor. And if you are doing that, you are off to a great start. The other thing that they do in supervision meetings is that they take notes. Now, I know that this sounds like kind of obvious, and some of you will be doing that anyway, but some of you might not be, okay? And if you're not, this is something that you definitely want to get into. So when you're having a meeting with your supervisor, you're asking them questions, they're asking you questions, they're making helpful suggestions, and you're just having a constructive discussion. You want to be making some notes of that discussion, writing down the advice that they're giving you, and just making sure that you've got a record of that, because it is really easy, especially if your supervision sessions tend to be a bit long. I mean, on average, mine are about an hour. And in that time, when I'm talking to my students for an hour or so, we cover a lot of stuff. And sometimes the important things, or the things that are going to make the biggest difference to somebody, are those things that we're only really talking about for 5 minutes. It might be one particular thing that I say to them, or another member of the supervisory thing says to them, that really kind of resonates with them and it is going to make such a difference to them. And that is what you need to write down. You need to make notes of your supervision meetings, because it's all too easy to forget afterwards, especially if you have a meeting with your supervisor and then you go off and you go straight into something else. Like, you might go off and teach a seminar, you might go off and have an interview with a participant, you might go off and do something completely unrelated. But if you are going off to do something immediately after your supervision, you're probably going to forget some of what was discussed. So take notes. If you're not doing it already, please take notes in your supervisory sessions. And just before I move on to the next point, I want to talk about one other thing that kind of relates to that. Some of my students in the past have asked me whether it's okay to record the supervision sessions that they have with me. And yeah, I am absolutely 100% fine with that, because that can be quite a helpful thing sometimes for students to do. But I would say, if you are going to do this, please make sure that you listen to the recording afterwards. Please make sure that you actually do something with it, that you take some notes from it. Don't let it just be something that sits on your phone and doesn't help you at all. And I'm minded to say, like, don't record your supervision sessions with your supervisory team. I think it is better if you make the notes, okay, there and then. And actually, a lot of the reason why people kind of are hesitant about doing that, about just going completely note-based, is that they worry that they're going to miss stuff that their supervisor says. But you know what? If that happens, ask them to repeat themselves. Ask them, would you mind just going over that one more time, just so I can make sure I've got that down? That's perfectly fine. I think so many students are like nervous and anxious about asking that kind of thing, about asking your supervisor to repeat themselves or go over something again. But we're fine with that. We're fine to repeat ourselves and go over it again, because the advice that we're giving to you is probably advice that we've given to tens, if not hundreds of people beforehand. So it's fine, you know, we can say it again. But to kind of sum up, because I went off on a bit of a ramble there, it's easier, I find anyway, in my experience, for students to actually take notes during the supervision than it is for them to record the supervision and then go back and listen to the recording and take notes of the recording. Because you're creating a layer of friction there, you're creating something else that you need to do. So it's much better if your supervision session is perhaps a little bit longer, but you take the time within that to actually note down the things that you want to note down. Another really important thing that students do in terms of being strategic around their supervision meetings is that they identify action points. So when you have your meeting with your supervisor, when you're coming towards the end of that meeting, make sure that you are noting down some action points, some things that need to be done before the next supervision meeting. Now, this is not just about things that you are going to do. This is about things that your supervisors are going to do as well. So if there's something that you need them to do for you, please don't be hesitant in asking them to do it and in confirming the kind of timeline of things happening. So say, for example, that you've got an initial draft of your literature review chapter and you're just making some changes to it. And one of your action points is to complete the draft of that chapter and send it to your supervisor before the next meeting. You might want to say to your supervisor, okay, well, I can get this to you for next Wednesday, so could you perhaps give me a little bit of feedback on it via email by the following Tuesday, so that I can make some changes and we can talk about that in the supervision. That's absolutely fine. It's perfectly reasonable to do that. Don't tiptoe around your supervisors. Don't be afraid to actually ask them for things that you need. They are there to help you. So tell them exactly what you need from them. Now, before we move on to the final habit, I just want to cover one other thing in relation to supervision. And that is, don't be afraid to chase your supervisors up if they forget to do something, or if they're taking their time doing something that they said that they would do. This happens to me quite a lot because I'm quite busy, and frankly sometimes stuff just falls off my radar, it falls off my list, I forget to do things. And my really on it PhD students, the ones who are really engaged, who are really productive and are really effective, they are the ones who will email me and say, "Hi Liz, hope you're well, just thought I'd drop you a quick line to see how this is progressing," or "Have you had a chance to look at this chapter yet?" or "It would be great if you could send this across to me in the next couple of days." And they are direct in those emails. They're not apologetic, they're not tiptoeing around me. They're like, "Hey, we agreed that you would do this thing and you haven't done this thing, so here's a reminder." Don't be afraid to do that stuff, okay? Because sometimes people get busy, people forget stuff, and you do just need to give them a little bit of a nudge. They're not going to be upset by that, they're not going to be offended by it, they're going to be grateful that you reminded them. The last thing that I want to talk to you about is something that I call human being basics, and I've left this till last because this is often the thing that people are like, "Oh, seriously?" when I'm talking to them about habits they need to be maintaining if they want to be, really successful as PhD students. And what I mean by human being basics is literally looking after yourself. This is the bare foundational minimal stuff that you need to be doing. So you need to stay hydrated, you need to eat healthy, wholesome, regular meals, and you need to move your body and get outside and be active every once in a while as well. Because if you are not doing those things, then that is going to affect your ability to work effectively and productively on your PhD. So I'm not going to bang on about this for ages, but if you are demotivated, if you are tired, if you are burned out, if you are struggling to bring yourself to look at your literature review, it could be that you're not looking after that basic stuff. It could be as simple as something like you're not drinking enough water, you're living on coffee. And I'm a fine one to talk because this happens to me regularly. When I feel that I'm a bit like, oh, I know that the first thing that has probably dropped off my radar has been the water. And I would suggest that if hydration is a thing for you, that you get one of these water bottles with the markers down them that show you how much you should be drinking throughout the day. And I found this with my PhD students too, the ones who kind of look after themselves physically, the ones who take time to make sure they're hydrated, that they're eating properly, are the ones who don't tend to get as tired, as burned out, as demotivated, as the ones who kind of let those things drift. So please make sure that you are doing that stuff. And let it be easy. Don't let this be another way to complicate your life, another thing that you're kind of adding to your existing workload. Tag these things onto other things that you're doing. So if you're not particularly great at having a well-stocked fridge, and this comes from somebody who literally had a cupboard full of protein bars not so long ago and would just eat those, yeah, not good. Don't follow my example. But if you want to kind of get on top of eating healthily and regularly, do a regular grocery shop and tag that regular grocery shop onto something that you enjoy doing. So maybe go and sit in the cafe of that supermarket and have a coffee beforehand and have a read of a book that you're really looking forward to reading, or something else that you enjoy doing, and kind of stack those habits. And there's a really fantastic book by a guy called James Clear, which is called Atomic Habits. It's this one. And he talks about how when you're trying to build new habits, sometimes the way to do that is to stack them on top of existing ones, rather than making them a whole big deal kind of in and of themselves, and making them this thing that you're adding to your life and you've got to create all this drama around it. You can actually layer them on top of things that you're already doing. So think about things that you already have in your routine, in your life. So if you go onto campus every Thursday to do some teaching, maybe on the way home, do a grocery shop, or, go to the gym or go out for a walk or whatever, and just fit that stuff around what you're already doing. Don't make it complicated, let it be easy. So that is all I'm going to say about the whole human being basics side of things, because I honestly do sound like a proper nag. Whenever I talk to any of my own PhD students about it, you can just see them kind of groaning inside, but it's massively important. Okay, so please make sure that you are looking after yourself. And there you have it. Those are 3 habits that are incredibly common in very successful PhD students: regular reflection, strategic supervision, and human being basics. Looking after yourself. So make sure that you make those habits part of your routine. And as I said at the start, if you're not great with boundaries, check out the boundaries video first, which I'll link to in the description, and really think about how you can start laying the foundation for these fantastic habits, because the better your boundaries, the more successful you will be when you come to put some habits on top of them. So that's all for this week, and I'll be back soon with more study tips and things on all of those wonderful things around dissertation motivation. So I'll see you then.